Welcome to the course on the golden moments of addictions, alcoholism, and 3 principles webinar series. Welcome to episode 4 of the Golden Moments with contributions by 18 participants from our various shows. Both Greg and I have felt the participants have been the key to the success of our show, not only in the way that they've contributed by listening, but by the way that they have contributed fantastically with their insights and their questions and their energy. They have stimulated our guests and they have led the group discussions. I want to highlight one specific participant, the late Jeff Rader, who I put at the top of this show. And the reason for that is as a tribute to this person now that he has moved on. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the wisdom of our participants, which are quite amazing. So thank you very much.
Stress is kind of in our perception. 4 years ago, a woman named Kelly McGonigal, who's not a 3 principles anything, had done some research on stress and did it's a 14-minute TED Talk. And she described people who believed that stress had no place in their life, that experienced stress actually led a shorter life. Whereas there's other people that just saw stress as a part of life, kind of like lifting weights, something that builds character and allows us to grow from it, saw stress as a positive thing. And so it really goes to, it's not SID, but it goes to our perception of stress. It largely defines our experience of stress.
Just realizing it, whether it comes in big spurts or little spurts, is really kind of up to you, and how you do it. I guess where the shame and whatnot maybe fits in is that sometimes you feel that you're not worthy enough for something, or perhaps it's not coming as fast as you might think. And I mean, a lot of us, experience that from time to time. It's funny, it's an interesting topic because I've been involved with this for a long time, since I was introduced to it in 1979 and I met Sid in 1980. But it's funny, it's not that you don't have your challenges in what you're doing, because you do. And we all go through this. But I was just thinking about a little bit yesterday what I might want to say. But you don't realize how much you're gaining sometimes at that particular moment. Just the fact that, and I know there's some new people, that the new people are on here, they're gaining more than they realize. They really do.
shared this a lot, but I don't think I've shared it here. I had this experience in hospital in 2007, 8, I think it was, where I was almost dying. And something happened in the hospital. I switched on the television and they were sending a terrible movie, kind of people getting cut up and blood and stuff. And I was there with all the kind of tubes and apparatus. And I just had this one thought: God has humor. And it just clicked, I couldn't take it seriously. And the moment I stopped taking my own, poor me, serious. There was something very comical about it. And I just felt love and gratitude and wow and beauty and everything changed like that. It was one of the best things that's ever happened. And in a way also, I just realized that in a way, fear of dying disappeared. Now I can still have these, sometimes if I have something, I can feel, oh no, am I going to get sick? So I can still have some fears, but they're not connected really no longer because it's a lot easier now. And I think in a way, if you look at addiction, I think it's also about if you somehow or another, if you give up in life, say it doesn't matter, my life is, it'll never be as I want it to be, or as soon as you do that, that's your thinking, isn't it?
Thank God for Sid's materials. For many people, it helps, just reminds a little bit. It's not something to be memorized, but from my own experience, it was when I stopped trying to get something from a conference and just saw the incredible beauty, firstly, of some change that I saw in the couple who had been drug addicts on the street. I won't go into the whole thing, but I actually saw a young couple who in Minnesota who had been on the street and who had become entirely different people. It helps to see the change in people, see the beauty in it. What it is a feeling of being blown away by the beauty of the power that we have before, of touching being and mind before, it's not by trying to change our thinking. So Greg, you were sort of guiding stepping a fine line there where, you're saying that common sense really is what helps you avoid going to that fridge again because you've already been that way. Anyway, I'm rambling around, but this beautiful feeling is what opened up, and I came back and was sharing it, and a little bit of sharing, and seeing, and not being in yourself, just totally being blown away by the beauty of it. Gave me the gift of touching pure being, or as pure a being as I'd ever experienced. And then, for a period of time, and then how you come back, and then you're taken care of, like Harry says, you've always got that, and you never go back to the old way because you've always got that guiding you.
have a question regarding what do you mean by spiritual nature? Like when I hear the talk, usually it's explained spiritual nature of the principle. So what exactly the nature means? I would call love as an experience, but for me, what spiritual, in a sense, spiritual nature, it just means something that is nothing that can create something else.
Okay.
That's what spirituality for me. So pretty much you could explain it, if it is a logical way, it's a magic. So from nothing, there is you have something else.
Okay.
That's what but this way of explaining to somebody who's looking for answer is not quite a understandable, I suppose, for them.
It might not work for them, but that's what you, like Sid would often say. He would say, now if I'm saying something and you don't quite like a word that I'm saying, or you find it to be confusing, you put your own word in there.
Of an insight that I had even before I had learned of the principles, and I was in a 12-step program, and the 8th step is where you make amends, or you make a list of people that you have harmed, and it's always really difficult. It's just difficult for me and difficult for others to go through that process. But my sponsor, who was very wise, and I speak so fondly of her now, and 2 years ago I just wouldn't have. I had such a blind spot to other recovery approaches. But she reminded me that some of my parenting techniques or behaviors evolved around how did I look as a parent. So my children's behaviors were somehow a reflection of my ability to parent, and they did or did not make me look good. And so when I was in a challenging situation with one of my teenagers, and I'm looking back at how did I harm them, because I just went ballistic, totally ballistic, complete rage. And so that was the thing that I wanted to make amends for many, many years later. And I realized my rage was because I was worried that the neighbors would find out. It had nothing to do with her. It was all about me. And so when I finally did that, make amends to her at the encouragement of my sponsor, my guide, she said, yeah, Mom, I remember that time, and I was really looking for guidance at that time, and all you gave me was a lot of anger and hate. And I just about died. And I'm dying just thinking about it now. So even though I was completely blind to my parenting style, I'm just so grateful for that woman, my sponsor, to point these things out to me, so that I can now have a better relationship with my children. And their behaviors are no longer a reflection of me, because they have their own wisdom, and they have everything they need. And I just, such a blind spot to me until somebody pointed it out to me. And that was even before I knew the principles. And now the insights are like little, like you said, little popping things, but they're not major. It just, I'm so grateful for recovery and just being that means I'm grateful for the crap that happened before recovery too, because I wouldn't be here if it weren't for it. And my relationships with my children wouldn't be as pure as they are now.
I think I picked up something you said last time. I was only here maybe 15 minutes. But the last half year, I've had this, I lost my job and I started smoking and coughing and, not feeling good about it. And I've tried to stop. So after the meeting last time, and I do not know what it was, it stopped. And it's really interesting because there's no withdrawal, no nothing. It's more like it's in another universe.
I actually had the same.
And I think it's really strange too, that, if I try to think about it, I find it really, what happened? I think there's something, Harry, that you said about people getting out of their habits without having any withdrawal symptoms. And that just clicked. I just got, yeah. Because the withdrawal symptoms must be because you feel like you need it. You have this experience that it's important somehow, that it's helpful somehow. And now for me, it's right now, it's like, whoever did that, what has that got to do with me? Something like that. So thank you. And I don't know if it's, I wouldn't even say, I just say it's so easy that I realized that my biggest problem has been thinking it was difficult.
I'm just getting grounding, going, and I want to resist the urge to come in and try to fix or talk about it too much, because I see how destructive that is when people talk about it that don't have the language and the grounded understanding themselves. But I wonder if you have any thoughts for me about what I might point her toward that could help her to start to find, another perspective.
Yeah. Paul, the first thing I'm going to address before I do that is to address kind of what you just said, because you made it about teaching, about trying to teach somebody this. But I'm going to make 2 points. One of them is what we've all, I think most of us, and I think Harry would be the first to say this too, and Greg and everybody here, that you can't teach if you don't have a student. You make a big mistake if you teach before you have a student.
Yeah, that's the key, a big point. You not only waste your time, you're going to hurt yourself.
Right. And Sid on the Long Beach tapes, this fellow says, after 10 years, he'd been coming to hear Sid. And he said, I finally heard you today, Sid. He said,
He said, why didn't you say this before? Sid says, I've been saying the same thing for 10 years. It's just that today you heard it. He says, well, why weren't you more insistent and insist that I heard you? He said, yeah, right. I've tried that. That doesn't work real well.
Right.
So the first point is, what are we talking about? We're talking about rapport. People, one of my favorite sayings, Paul, is that people do not care what you know until they know that you care.
Mm-hmm.
If the psychological innocence points to the experience of thought in the moment, then the spiritual experience that points to both the formless and the form must be about the experience of feeling in the moment. And I remember, and I don't know if you've heard this, Harry, or maybe the person that said it to me was fooling me, but I've often heard that the Native Americans talked about feelings as companions.
Sorry, I missed that.
That they talked about feelings as companions that were with you for a little while. They walked the path with you for a little while. So they never said, I am angry. They always said, I am with anger. But it was always an outside entity that was informing me of the moment and the path that I was crossing at that exact time. So that it never became me, and it never became mine. And when I heard you say, my anger, I don't think it is ever ours. I think it is spirit talking to us. I think it is spirit informing us of how we are buying into whatever is apparently going on, which is not real, but it is informing us about it. Different depth, just like Thomas was saying. When anger is there, when sadness is there, when resentment is there. To me, that is the one red flag that goes up and says, you're buying into it. There is more depth here and you are not seeing it. There is love here too, even though you cannot see it yet. There is something to be seen. And so whenever those red flags come up, it's a call for attention, for a deeper form of attention, a more radical form of attention. And you know how Rumi said that we are not here to find love, we are just here to find the walls that we have built against it and tear them down? Well, those red flags are the ones that tell me where the walls are. Because I don't know where the walls are until I bump into them. And when I bumped into them, it comes in the form of a feeling. And then spirit is informing me about both the formless and the form and how I'm getting lost in it. And there is more depth in there. So to me, spiritual innocence definitely talks about how I am not what I am feeling. And what I am feeling has no control or power over me unless I make it have power over me. It's not even an allowing, it's an actual act of power, using the power of that.
place in my head where I am when I get in that situation now, and I try to remember myself, this is thought, and don't buy it, I'm creating it, and so on. It feels like the same place in my head where the battle was previously. And I found a few times already that when I get into this and I see shift by shift a little more about the situation, and I totally forgot about eating because I was so into it, and I felt like this is getting me nearer to a truth, whereas in previous times I was like going in, going out. It was two places very far from each other, like having a little insight and then having this totally being in thought, in and out in a way. And now I'm closer to it as I'm in an urge or any kind of experience, and I can use what I saw so far from the principles. I'm so close to it. I don't know if this is the right word, but I have the feeling that there's a way now to go through that.
Trust what works from inside out, and you're part of the evolution. So evolution unfolds every minute, every second, every now.
Back to that patience thing again, really, where I want to know quickly, I want to get on with it.
I heard you say something with your friend about, I just don't know anything, just going to be there sitting, talking football. It's a nice feeling in that. And of course, you seem to be a very intelligent man. So from what you have learned, you will see something different within your friend. And if you stay present and get to that good feeling and watch that game and have that beer, you will actually 100%, I'm certain, I don't know how it will look like, I don't have a clue, but I'm 100% sure you will see something new that pops up in the moment if you listen for it and relax, just stay present. And it's about what you see. It's given to you, but you don't see it because you think you have to be someone. I've been there myself all the way.
To happen. It's almost like when I start that outside in, it crowds me into a tighter, smaller place where my personal side takes over. And when I just take a deep breath and relax and slow things down to the present moment, just let myself be, then I feel this expanding, and that expanding helps me transcend. It's like my true self is free and limitless, and I can feel that, and then I'm fine. So that's the feeling I get when I'm closer to the spiritual self, is a very free, expansive, joyful feeling. The other one is crowded and
You persona.
fact that we know that we're not broken, that we have this inner wisdom, that we're all part of this spiritual energy that can move through us and is moving through us, is just a beautiful thing to relate to clients from that place. It's just, you just get a deeper and deeper sense of gratitude for whatever it is that allows you to see people as unbroken. It doesn't matter what they're doing. It doesn't matter if they're still using. It doesn't matter if they had a psychotic breakdown yesterday. You know that this is within you, and because it's within you, you know it's within them. So it's just, so grateful for that keeps becoming simpler and also more profound at the same time. And it ends up just looking like loving people.
Hi, what's up? I definitely know and believe that it's like my happiness used to come from others. Like I definitely didn't know anything about myself, like my likes, dislikes, and all that. And just over time, I learned more and more about myself, and just I know I have, like, I know this truth. I have a lot to offer. Yeah, and everybody's looking for the same thing, like truth and like just like community bonding, you know, being a part of a group. And I mean, then again, just saying that, I don't know, I'm just more comfortable with myself, and yeah, I think that's a big part of it.
That's a huge part of it, is being comfortable with yourself. That was a feeling I carried with me for over 30 years of my life, was not feeling like I fit in anywhere. I mean, that was one of the things that caused me to, drink and drug and overeat and all that stuff. I mean, it's a big deal to not feel like you fit in and to not be comfortable in your own skin.
Yeah. And one thing, like, I used to like think a lot about what I'd say before I said anything, and then nothing would come out. Like, oh, if I say this, they might think I'm mean or whatever. But like, if there's a truth, like, I'll speak up. I'll say my mind. I'll be like, you know what? That's wrong. I'll say it once, just when situations come up that, I don't know, just kind of point to truth when I see it.
That last bit you were saying there, it was good. I've enjoyed the talk, actually. Yeah, and I've been reflecting on a lot of stuff as it's been going on, because I'm from a recovery background, like, and I don't go as much anymore, like, just kind of lost. I don't know, a lot of people, when I've witnessed them, because there's so much to cover that you've talked about, it's like, what I've noticed with people who are in recovery centres or jail or whatever, they're fine in them place. It's when they come back into the real world, they struggle. An addict or an alcoholic loves recovery centres, and it just loves, you know what I mean? It's just like, because there's no responsibilities in there. It's when they come back out to the real world, they struggle. That's because it's responsibilities again, and that's what I've noticed with people that relapse. They can't take responsibility. They can't handle it. That's what happens.
it's the funniest thing because they're no different. It makes no difference. You know, they are human beings exactly like we are, creating an experience of life through their thinking, not realizing or I guess forgetting in some way who they are at the core of their being. And that's universal, you know, so what I see them experiencing is really no different than everybody else. It's just for them, the circumstances are more extreme, you know, so they come from very abusive relationships, or they have no resources around to help them. But when any of them in any way gets a little glimpse of what you've been pointing to about getting in touch with that feeling of who they are at the core of their being, who they are separate from the craziness that exists in their heads, then they somehow wake up, and that somehow gives them access to whatever they need in the moment to make the next step, or you know, have an insight to not punch somebody in the face. You know, maybe that's not a good idea. You know, I had a
conversation that's been shared, because I think homelessness is just a title that we've given to define a group of people. Yeah. And I think sometimes in that defining we get lost. I think it's a client group that it certainly has complex needs. And sometimes they get lost within those complex needs, so that the individual, never mind the spirit, is lost within. Yeah. But you know, when you were talking, I kept on hearing the Mother Teresa saying, "Love them anyway." And I think that's really what Tony and I have always done when we've gone along. Yeah. Apart from starting off with the groups that we've done of kind of saying what times we'll be there, then it's over to them. And that's normally a little bit of a shock, because they're used to being told, you need to be here, you need to be doing that, your money will get stopped. And it's all this on top of survival, really, day to day. So to answer your question, Harry, it would be love them anyway. And I think when you turn up with that in your mind, then you can't help but love them anyway.